This happened about a year ago, back when everyone was still figuring out the world. Every summer in my hometown, there's this big festival in July and August, and it's always a wild time. So, like usual, I went with my parents, some friends, and my partner, Alex. I had a few drinks, but I was definitely more tipsy than drunk. Everything was great, even though it was pouring rain and I was soaked. We ended up at a packed pub. I ordered a cider, and we headed to the back because everyone wanted to smoke. Of course, the cider made me need to pee. I put my drink on the table where Alex and my dad were sitting, thinking it would be safe, and went to the restroom. A few minutes later, I came back, took a swig of my drink without a second thought, and then, nothing. I blacked out. I only remember flashes, feeling unable to get up from my chair, being incredibly dizzy and numb, like I was underwater. Sounds and sights were distorted, like I'd lost all sense of time and space. I vaguely recall my dad and Alex practically dragging me through the streets because I couldn't walk. That's it. We got home around 7:00 p.m., and I slept until 9:00 a.m. the next morning. I just figured I was really drunk, no big deal, until my friends told me how bizarre and terrifying my behavior had been. They were convinced someone had drugged my drink because I hadn't consumed enough to be like that. I still don't understand why. They didn't do anything to me, and I wasn't alone, so it wasn't like they could have taken me somewhere to assault me. Why did they do it? Were their intentions truly malicious, or did they just want to mess with me? I've felt really off ever since. I can't drink alcohol like I used to. It just makes me feel awful. So please, be incredibly careful about your drinks, especially if you're a woman. And to guys, please don't put drugs in our drinks. It's a horrible thing to do. I just remembered that my dad, Alex, and I talked to two guys at the pub. They seemed really friendly, but they asked some strange questions, like if I had a boyfriend, how old I was, and so on. I'm pretty sure it was them, and it breaks my heart because they seemed genuinely nice. Back when I was in college and finally had my own car, my typical Friday evenings involved driving my younger cousins and my brother to our old high school's basketball games. We were all big fans. Games usually wrapped up by 9:30 p.m., and after my cousin, Leo, finished his late-night burger run, it would be around 10:30 p.m. No matter the time of day or how much of a hurry I'm in, I always make sure to wait in my car until I see the person I've dropped off enter their house. My parents always drilled this into my head, saying it ensured they got home safely. My mom's biggest fears were them not having a key, getting locked out, or worse, someone hiding in the shadows out of sight. So, around 10:30 p.m., I pulled up to Leo's house. The passenger side of my car where he was sitting faced directly onto his family's driveway. As Leo gathered his stuff, I glanced over at my Aunt Sarah's house, checking for anything or anyone unusual. That's when I saw what looked like my Uncle Tom underneath her car, doing some car work. Before Leo even stepped out, I took a closer look, and a chilling realization hit me. This man was not my uncle. I quickly pulled Leo back into the car. "Look, who is that?" I whispered, pointing. He looked, his eyes wide with fright. I told him to call his dad, just to confirm it wasn't him. As he did, I pulled the car to the other side of the street, just in case. His dad, my Uncle Tom, came out as fast as he could, and I got out too. Now, both of us were confronting the man underneath Aunt Sarah's car. The man was deep under the vehicle, only his legs were visible. As it turned out, it was just a man experiencing homelessness who had clearly had too much to drink, his words slurring as we repeatedly told him he needed to leave. I know the man meant no harm, but I tell this story to people as a cautionary tale. Always scan the area, and always wait for your family members, friends, or whoever you're dropping off to make sure they enter their house safely. Hey everybody, hope all is good. I've decided to tell this story today because I know a lot of people may have had similar experiences with weird or creepy host families and know how uncomfortable and awkward it can be. This is a bit lengthy, so bear with me. Basically, some of my classmates and I from high school, along with some teachers, went on a month-long study trip around Europe. We spent 1 week in each city and stayed with host families. The trip had been going amazingly. My friends and I, who had chosen to stay together, had a really good experience with the kind old lady we stayed with in the first part of the trip, so we were super excited to meet our next hosts in Paris. We had been encouraged to email our hosts a week before we left home to get to know each other, which really helped our first interactions not feel awkward. However, I'd sent a really nice email to the father of this family, let's call him Gene, and he never replied. I didn't think much of it. He probably hadn't seen it, or maybe he just didn't want to answer, which is fine. But just as we got off the plane in Paris, I got an email from him that merely said, "Hello. Let me know when you get on the bus." I thought it was a bit cold, but I tend to be overly friendly because I'm extremely socially awkward, so I figured it was just me being too intense. A cab took us to their house, and we were greeted with the strongest glare I had ever experienced. Again, being overly friendly, I just kept saying hi and thank you for everything. But he didn't say a word. He just kept glaring at us and then at the taxi driver until the cab left. Then he just opened the door and let us in. Before he even said hello or showed us around the house, he made us stay in the narrow entrance and started telling us the rules of the house. This is normal, but the way he said it was very intimidating, basically stating that we had to take extreme care of his house or we'd have to pay for anything we damaged. Again, valid, but he didn't stop glaring at us like we'd already broken something. He ordered us to take our shoes off and told us our room was on the 3rd floor, then left. So we had to carry our suitcases up the very tiny and narrow stairs, not even knowing where we were going. But whatever, we thought, it's probably just the awkward introduction. But the awkwardness had only just started. We were called down for dinner and sat waiting while he cooked for us and his daughters. He asked which one of us was vegetarian. That's me. After explaining how stupid and unhealthy I was for not eating meat and how being a vegetarian would take 10 years off my life, he handed me a little bowl with literally 5 very small lettuce leaves. Again, kind of weird. But we wouldn't even have dinner at their house, since the school we were exchanging into covered our meals. Something I'm still glad about, so it was fine. He started asking really specific, private questions like, how much money have you brought? Where do you keep it so you don't lose it? And do you come from rich families? Which made us very uncomfortable. So we just said we didn't know and tried to change the subject. He also ordered us to never speak Spanish, our mother tongue, whenever we were there, even if we were alone, inside or outside the house. Obviously, we didn't do that because we speak Spanish. It's not like we have trouble speaking English, but it was ridiculous. Whenever he'd hear us talking in Spanish in our room, I still don't know how he did. He'd come up to scold us for not conversing in English. Yes, he scolded us. We also later learned that his wife suffered from a disease. I'm not going to go into detail for privacy reasons, and we didn't see her around much. That night, my friend took a shower first, then me. While I was getting dressed in the bathroom, he came into our room and started talking to us and asking other questions. It was very uncomfortable because I was still in the bathroom, and he kept coming near the door to ask me stuff, then turning back to talk to my friend. But after a while, he left, and it was fine. We discussed how weird it was, and were really worried about the money questions because it was his own house, and he could easily just come into the room in the middle of the night, open our suitcases, and do whatever he pleased. The next morning we got up really early and came down for breakfast. To be honest, we had kind of high expectations because our last host was absolutely the best, so we were expecting he would at least have a slice of bread for us. Yeah, he didn't. But that's not the bad part. While the whole family was eating at the table, he told us to just go through all the cabinets and pantry. There would surely be something to eat. I honestly didn't feel comfortable raiding this family's kitchen while they were just staring at me. My friend grabbed a banana because she didn't know what to do, and I said I wasn't hungry. So we just left and decided to no longer have breakfast at their house because it was too awkward. I know you must think I'm overreacting, but first of all, I don't know these people, and it was just so weird. Besides, my social anxiety didn't help at all. and I just couldn't bear being there. As I said, we had dinner at school. We didn't really spend a lot of time with him. We really only showered and slept there, and that was it. But somehow, in the little time we were at the house, he always found a way to make us feel more and more out of place. We had to let him know via text when we were coming home, and I'd always be polite but also friendly, so I'd just say, "Hi Gene, we are 5 minutes away," always with a little exclamation mark to seem nice, I guess. But the second night, we arrived home, and as we went through the front door, he came stomping his way towards us, absolutely furious like he was about to punch a wall. He started yelling at me, telling me to never, ever text him or any adult like that ever again. I was so incredibly confused and scared. What did I even send to him? He pulled out his phone and made me read that message out loud. He said, "Normal people do not text like that it was very disrespectful," and proceeded to show the text to everyone around the house and asked them what they thought of this, and if anyone had ever texted them like this. He was so angry about an exclamation mark. I was livid inside, absolutely at the verge of tears and leaving the house. I just said sorry and went to our room. He then came up smiling like nothing had happened and had the absolute audacity to ask, "Have you brought any gifts for us?" We had. We had bought them a beautiful picture frame and lots of sweets from our country. We had spent a lot of money on them, so we handed it to him, and he acted like a little kid on Christmas. However, when he opened them, he looked at them like we had given him a bag of trash. "This is it?" he asked, frowning. "I thought it was going to be something better since we are letting you stay in our home. But I guess it's fine. Thanks." He left the room, disappointed. We continued to have really, really bad encounters with him, telling us off like we were his daughters that he could just yell at like it was nothing. At night, we would hear screaming, fighting, banging, and crying. My friend wanted to contact accommodation services to ask for a host switch because we were truly having a horrible time running away from our host to avoid another interaction. But I refused to. I know, dumb, because firstly, I was too shy and scared of what could happen if we told him we were leaving for another home, and also, I felt really, really bad because of his wife, and I didn't want to give the family a hard time when they were probably already struggling with medical care and hosting was their only income. She was mad at me for a bit, but she thought the same as I did. As badly as we wanted to leave, we decided to suck it up. We also had gotten lost at some point while we were on the night bus back home. Luckily, there was a teacher from the school who we knew, and she walked us home. She asked us who we were staying with, and we told her we were staying with Jean, and mentioned it was a bit uncomfortable there. Her face changed a little bit, from happy to kind of worried. "Yeah, I know him," she said. "We've been told that he's a bit special, but that's it, really. Don't worry about it." "Yeah, try to spend a night in that madhouse, and you tell me about it." When we told Jean about us getting lost and the teacher helping us, he seemed so interested in a creepy way. He said he knew her and asked how she was doing, and the creepiest part was he asked us if we knew where she lived, like at least 2 or 3 times. We had seen her house, but we just told him no because it was very, very weird. Our last full day there, he had told us that he probably wouldn't be home when we arrived, since he mentioned he was meeting a friend or something, but that he would arrive no longer than 10 minutes after we did. We arrived home that night, and as he'd said, he wasn't home. This time, the only one home was his wife. It was our first time getting to chat with her, only she was so nice. She seemed genuinely like the only sane person there. We talked for a while, actually, and then we thanked her profusely for everything, even though her husband was our nightmare, and told her she had a very beautiful family. Then she stopped smiling and said, "You think so? I don't think so, but thank you." Then it was all silence for about 30 seconds. Neither of us knew what to respond to that, so after a bit, we just nervously laughed and said goodnight. Jean didn't return until almost midnight. He asked us if we had any laundry to do. I had some clothes I'd been wearing for a week that really needed to be washed, but then he said that he would do it and wouldn't let me go and help or do it myself. And honestly, this might be a reach, but I really didn't want to give him my clothes for some reason. It just felt wrong. So, I ended up declining, saying I remembered that I had actually washed them, which I knew wasn't believable, but there was no way I was giving him my stuff. He kept insisting, asking over and over again if I was sure, and I said I was. The next morning, we were so excited to finally be able to leave that house, after a week that felt more like a month. We had our things ready and took our stuff down the stairs to the main entrance, waiting for the cab to pick us up. Then he came downstairs and started to make small talk with us. He kept looking out the window over and over again, like he was looking for something. We thanked him for the hospitality, which wasn't provided, but you have to be polite, I guess. And he started rambling about how he loved hosting students, that he had been doing this for like 10 years and stuff like that. Then he started saying weird stuff, like, but you have to be careful, because you don't know who you could be staying with. There are some crazy people, you know. I swear I was about ready to escape, getting ready to run, when the cab arrived. He started suddenly acting super happy and nice, like we had the greatest relationship. He hugged my friend and then went in to hug me. I reluctantly hugged him back for a second and then went out the door. As soon as I stepped out of the house, he slammed the door shut so loudly even the cab driver looked scared. He glared at us through the little window while we got in the cab and drove off. I've never been so relieved in my life. It was like a weight being pulled off my shoulders, and you bet I blocked that number so quick, glad that I would never have to see them again in my life. I understand that families have their issues, but that man was absolutely terrifying. Even though I'm real thankful I at least had a place to shower and sleep for a week, I'm sorry for anyone that has had to stay with him over his 10 years of hosting, or may have to in the future. But don't be like me. If you ever feel uncomfortable, just leave. Nobody is going to be mad at you. I'm lucky nothing more than the overall weirdness and verbal abuse happened to me, but there are tons of cases where these stories take a much darker turn. Better safe than sorry. I don't go on many dates, but when I do, I make sure to follow safety protocols. I only meet in public places. I let either family or friends know where I'm going, and I park in a populated place close by to wherever we meet. Anyway, this date, named Leo, initially suggested we meet at his apartment to watch a movie and have a few drinks. I said, no, I don't feel comfortable with that, and I only want to meet in public. He seemed okay with this, but then brought it up a few more times. I said if money was an issue, we could meet up another time or forget about it altogether. Leo backtracked and agreed to meet at a cafe I chose that I was familiar with and equidistant to where we both lived. He turned up in a two-door sports car, this detail is relevant, and went into the cafe. I followed behind and introduced myself. After a polite introduction, things began to get weird. I ordered a cola, and he said, "Don't you want a drink?" I was going to pop into the bar which is connected to the cafe and get one. I said, "No, I'm not drinking." He looked at me like, "What the heck?" as if I was being unreasonable. I had already explained in messages, I don't drink, as I'm on medication, so having to re-explain again annoyed me. He seemed disappointed and went to order a beer from the bar while I got a table. We sat down with our drinks, and Leo immediately brought up going back to his place again, even though the original plan was to stay here and order food, and I had already stated that was not happening. He said something along the lines of having a few drinks and eating at his place, and I said, "We don't have to eat, we can just have our drinks and leave." He got defensive and said he had money but preferred it if we went back to his. I made a joke and said, "You're not a killer, are you?" Instead of laughing it off, he stared at me unnervingly and said, "You don't think I would hurt you, do you?" I laughed uncomfortably and said, "Of course not." But really, I was relieved this date wouldn't be going any further. He suddenly said, "Are you going to follow me in your car? Because that wouldn't make sense. How about we go in my car, but I've got packages in the front, so you'll have to squeeze in the back, and I'll drop you back off to your car after." In reality, that made even less sense than me following him in my own car and then driving home from his house after the fact. It was completely illogical, which made it even more creepy in my mind. Every alarm bell was going off at this point. I said, "Look, I don't want to go to yours, and your insistence is giving me the creeps." He looked shocked. mumbled something about needing the restroom, and excused himself from the table. A few moments later, I saw him through the cafe window, getting into his car and driving off. A massive bullet dodged, in my opinion. Also, the fact his car didn't have back doors made it even more sinister, because imagine if something happened in the car and I couldn't escape. A couple of years ago, my partner Chris and I took a trip to a national park in Colorado. We stayed just outside the park in the town of Estes Park. One evening, as we were driving back from a day of hiking, I noticed that the headlights caught what appeared to be somebody lying down on the side of the road, both feet pointed towards the street. I told Chris there was a person lying in the pitch black on the side of the highway. He knows I love my true crime and was absolutely certain that what I had seen were just discarded items, like trash bags. I was so certain, I just kept saying, "No, I saw a body. I know that was a person." We made our way back to our hotel. As we were about to park, Chris looked over at me and said, "You are really sure about this, aren't you? You want to go back?" I was desperate. "Yes, I do," I insisted. As we drove by again, I saw the feet. I had Chris turn the car back around and yelled at him to stop the car. He rolled down his window and said, "Are you okay?" There was no answer. One more time, even louder, "Are you okay?" Suddenly, a woman dressed in all black sat up. She was wearing a nice brown jacket and black pants and had her purse and 3 water bottles. Her makeup was done nicely and she seemed very sweet. I could tell Chris was absolutely shocked. I asked her where she was headed. She said that she was trying to get to the local gas station up the road and that her mom was going to meet her there to pick her up. This woman looked to be in her late 40s. I knew something weird was going on because where we found her, the gas station was still another 7 miles away. She said in her mind she thought it was only about a mile from our hotel and she could walk it. We offered her a ride and she climbed into the back seat, not before I grabbed a thick scarf to wrap around my neck and my pepper spray. As we drove, we tried to ask her questions. Just chit-chat. I asked why she was lying on the side of the road. She said she had gotten tired of walking and just laid down, ready to give up. It was winter and she had no hat or gloves with her. I could tell she was very fragile. Once we arrived at the gas station, she thanked us, got out of the car, and sat on a bench in front of the closed store. We offered to stay with her until her mom arrived, but she said she'd be fine. I reminded her that there was no cell reception in the area and triple-checked that she didn't want us to wait with her. We drove back to our hotel and noticed there were now 2 police cars in the parking lot. They had not been there the first time we arrived back from hiking that evening. I told Chris I knew that they had to be there for that woman. I calmly walked over to one of the cars and asked if they were looking for a missing woman. The officer told me that they were and asked if I'd seen her. I explained the situation and that I really felt like the woman had something very bad happen to her. He thanked us for picking her up and giving her a ride. He couldn't tell me what had happened, but thought her leaving and going somewhere else was a smart choice. I asked that he go check on her at the gas station just to make sure she was okay and that her mom did finally arrive. I'm realizing that whatever happened was at the same hotel we were staying at that evening. I looked at the local police log and found that a domestic violence dispute had broken out at the hotel. The woman had been beaten very badly, and she was so terrified that she was willing to walk in the dark without a flashlight just to escape. It's my guess that after walking about a half-mile from the hotel, she was in so much pain that she needed to lie down. I got the feeling that she thought she might actually die there. She couldn't go back to the hotel because she had already escaped and gone to the front desk to call her mom. Her husband knew she'd been there and would have come after her. The front office called the police for her while she escaped. It's my understanding that the man who hurt her was her husband and was arrested. I always wondered about her and whether she went back to him. Did her mom pick her up? Is she safe now? Now my husband listens when I say, "There's a body on the side of the road."